Well, hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Huddle, the Review.com's weekly high school football show. I am Rob Todor, executive editor of the Review, joined as always by Mike Brown, the sports editor. And Mike, scoring did not diminish at all in week 6 of the high school football season. Alliance, Marlington, Louisville, Southeast, Western Reserve, Minerva, and St. Thomas all broke 40 points, and I'm leaving out the 62-36 South Range United game, which had to be a lot of fun unless you're a statistician. So, but I think really what impressed me was Alliance going to Carrollton, which Alliance, as we've talked, always has a tough time with Carrollton, and then going on the road. But they came out and they dominated from the get-go in that game.
They sure did. Another big game for Cordell Phillips. He throws for just under 300 yards. J.J. Kukura has a big night receiving. Parrish Martin has a big night receiving. And the Aviators are rolling offensively.
Yeah, now they've got a tough game again. They go back on the road. They're at Kansas South. Both teams are 4-2, but Kansas South has shown they're susceptible to giving up points. They've done it to West Branch, which hasn't won a game, and then Marlington scored 47 on them last week in a 47-27 win.
Yeah, I think if you can keep Josh Lyon reasonably intact there, you keep him down, that throwing down a little bit of their air game, I think you're in good shape. And I think Alliance has the whole package offensively, so I think I feel good about the Aviators' chances in that one.
Okay, speaking of Marlington, as we said, they defeated Kansas South 47-27. They won 5 in a row, and they're undefeated in the NBC.
Yeah, and I tell you what, they're just rolling. I think that's a team that's really on a roll. These last 4 weeks of the NBC season are going to be really interesting because the better matchups are in the last 4 weeks, Rob. I consider Marlington right there at the top with some of the best.
Yeah, now the Dukes play host to Salem and homecoming this Friday night. Salem's 2-4, 0-3 in the league, and they've been giving up some points. They've given up over 120 points the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, now they're a team that, boy, they can score on anybody, but then they had trouble stopping people. So that's, it comes down to if they can get their defense plan up to snuff, I think a little bit better. I think they would have a better chance of some of these games because they certainly can score.
Yeah, definitely. Well, 2 weeks ago they gave up 60 points to Alliance, which throws it all over the place. And last week they gave up 63 to Minerva, which is basically a running team.
Think about in that game. There was 101 points scored between those two teams. That has to be one of the highest point scoring games in the history of the NBC, I would think, Rob.
Yeah, absolutely. Also in the NBC last week, Louisville defeated West Branch 48-0, keeping the Warriors winless, as we said. And Louisville's still undefeated. They're 6-0 and 3-0. Now they got a tough one. Now they go on the road, and it's a big rivalry game, and they travel to Minerva.
Yeah, I was looking at Louisville's schedule. The interesting thing about the Leopards, and I think they're a good football team, don't get me wrong on this, but they have not beaten a team with a winning record yet. Yet in the last 4 weeks, they play, I believe, 4 teams with winning records, so it's going to be very interesting down the stretch run. I think the Leopards are right there, along with Marlington, Alliance, Minerva. I think those are all quality football teams.
Yeah, well, and even the way they it's not like Louisville's been squeaking by these teams that have not been as successful. They're dominating.
Yeah, and John DeMarco was very classy last week. He realizes West Branch is a really young team, and he called off the Dogs at halftime, played their second and third teamers the entire second half because that score could have been even more lopsided.
Let's go to the ITCL. Sebring remains winless in the ITCL. They lose at home to Jackson Milton 28-15. Now they've got Wellsville coming off their first loss of the season, so it certainly doesn't get any easier for the Trojans.
Right, that's a tall order this week. Sebring is at home, so there's a little bit of a comfort level there, but they're going to have to bring it Friday night because Wellsville, I think, is probably the second or third best team in that tier of the Inter-Tri-County League. Yeah.
Now, really, the game of the week in the ITCL is Western Reserve and Lowville, and that game's in Berlin Center. Yeah. Western Reserve is 6-0, 3-0 in the league. Lowville's 5-1 and 3-0 in the league, and as we said, they beat Wellsville last weekend. Western Reserve coming off an impressive win at Leetonia 37-7. So this is going to be one of those tough tests for Western Reserve.
Absolutely, but I like what Andy Hake's doing out there. Like I said, I think they're going to be the last team standing for our area when the playoffs conclude toward the end of November. I think Nick Allen's had a great year, the quarterback. He's already thrown for over 1,000 yards. Joe Falaska, I believe, has scored 20 think he scored 21, has 21 receptions so far this year. I think he scored something like 8 or 9 touchdowns already. So they've got a lot of offensive talent on that football team.
Yeah, Western Reserve at 6-0. I was looking at Joe Idle's website, who kind of has the unofficial computer ratings. I think Western Reserve's pretty much locked up a playoff spot already. And you figure they still got Wellsville and Lowville on the schedule. They win those games, they could be far and away have the most computer points of anybody in the state in Division 7.
That's right.
Now in the upper tier, United again. Boy, that's a meat grinder of a league. They're 2-4 with that senior laden team, and another high scoring game. 98 point South Range. Looks like they're back where they were 2 or 3 years ago, and the Raiders beat United 62-36. United gets a bit of a break this week. They still have to go on the road, and it's a rivalry game against Lisbon. Both teams are 2-4 and 1-2 in the ITCL. Now in the Portage Trail Conference, Southeast defeats Waterloo 48-7. Got the Pirates back on track a little bit.
Right. Yeah. Southeast has a good team. You know, the thing about them, they're young in spots this year, and I think that's a team that's going to be better in the second half of the year than they were in the first half. But, you know, you have to go through that process. You got to get out there and play on Friday nights. You can't just hit a switch and it change. And as much as coaches would like that to happen, it doesn't work out that way.
Yeah, and the Pirates at home this week against Garrettsville Garfield, another league game. Waterloo going out of the league, or going out of their division. They're gonna stay in the Portage Trail Conference. They visit a very good Norton team who is 5-1. So
and there's my guy John Tanksley. I just think the world of that guy. That guy was up for a head coaching job in our area a few years ago, and I got to know John through an interview process. Fantastic coach, and I knew wherever he would end up, he would be a great coach. The Norton program had won very few games in like the last several years prior to his. Last year's first year, he took them to a 6-4 record. This year, they're undefeated, coming off a win off Ravenna. They're looking at a playoff spot. I mean, that guy is just a fantastic coach. He's a former coach for Vic Wedding at Northwest and did a great job there, too.
Yeah, absolutely. And Saturday, St. Thomas went to Youngstown. They defeated Youngstown Christian 42-20. The Knights rolling along. They're 5-1, and they're home against Akron Garfield.
Yeah, they're going to be a playoff team. There's no doubt in my mind. I think that's really helped them this year, too, Rob. The fact that there's 7 divisions, you know, they bumped down to 6. And I think they're tailor-made for a nice long run in Division 6.
Yeah, so it's going to be very interesting. Some good games coming up this week. I want to remind you to check out Pigskin Picks, where you can win some great prizes by picking games against the experts like Mike. If you need help, kind of take a look at Gridiron Guesswork that comes out on Friday afternoons and in Friday's paper, rather. And Mike is winning the overall lead, and I didn't do very well last week. Thank you to Stanford and a couple other college teams that will remain nameless. Arizona State, thanks a lot, guys. But we'll have previews throughout the week in the Alliance Review. We'll have coverage on Friday night in Saturday's Alliance Review, and of course live coverage with scoring updates on the review.com. Make sure you check out the videos of the video highlights of the games throughout the weekend from Friday night's games. For Mike Brown, this is Rob Todor. We'll see you at a game Friday night.